Today we're discussing Hawaii versus Florida. And if you don't know me, hi, I'm Kristen. I started off in the travel industry as a travel nurse, which I still am, but I'm also a travel agent. And I've been to both of these locations on travel nursing assignments for months at a time. And I've vacationed in both of these places, so I have a lot of insight to share with you, so let's jump into it. I really wanted to talk about this because what if you don't want to get a passport, but you still want to travel? These are some of the top destinations in the USA that you can travel to, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the weather. So you've heard of Florida called the Sunshine State, but technically Florida has less days in sunshine compared to a lot of other states that I can mention. Florida does have a hurricane season, so odds are you're probably gonna have a lot of rain. But Florida is a big state, so one part of Florida, like say the South, I think technically has less rain days than the Panhandle does. So wherever you're depending on going, just kind of look at the weather, see when hurricane season is, which it's during the summer months, and plan your vacation from there. Although, I wouldn't let the rain stop you from going on your dream vacation to Florida, because if it rains one minute, it's probably going to stop the next. That's kind of how Florida is. It's a little bit unpredictable. In the winter, especially the Panhandle of Florida can get cold. And I'm not talking like 30 degrees cold, although it can. But like, I feel like it's kind of humid there, and whenever, even 50s, if the wind blows and hits you, it feels a lot colder than it is. So kind of prepare if you're going during off season, just to bring a light jacket, and I think you'll be just fine. Now, Hawaii, on the other hand, always 80 degrees. It does rain, but certain parts of the islands rain more than others. Basically, the gold standard is the west side of the islands are more dry. The east side is more wet, and like where the mountain locations are more wet, like in the jungle. For instance, we were staying on Oahu. On the west side, when we would stay there, we would like hardly ever see rain. But in that same day, like within the same hour, we would drive across the island to the east side or in the mountains, and it would be just like thunderstorming. It's really crazy. So, and what's a good thing about Hawaii is a lot of the hotels and resort locations are very localized on the islands, and they tend to be on the west side. So really, I don't feel like you have to worry much about weather unless you plan on like really exploring the island, like going up in the mountain locations. Be prepared for rain and mud. Also, Hawaii does have an off season as well during the winter months, and this is more of like tides and waves are the problem. The waves in Hawaii can get absolutely massive during the winter months, and that's something you really need to think about, especially if you want to do a lot of like scuba diving and snorkeling. That can really affect your vacation. Now, both of these places are like abundant in wildlife. Let's start with Florida. So the one thing that you think of when you think of Florida in wildlife, probably alligators, right? You probably should, because all of Florida, even like the multiple states around Florida, are really abundant in alligators. You're not going to see them in the beaches. Like that's rare. I'm sure it could happen. I'm not a marine biologist or anything, but so don't worry about that in the beaches with alligators. But if you come to like ponds, springs, any standing body of water, you'll probably see the sign warning you about alligators. Even if that spot is not known to have alligators, I really think it's like a standard to put a sign there in a standing body of water. We've been to many springs with the sign and never seen one alligator. And of course, if you're like going to the Everglades or something, you're going to see an alligator. So I wouldn't let that ruin your vacation or stop you from traveling to Florida, because they're there. You may not see them, but don't let it freak you out. Another thing I love about Florida is it's abundant in birds. Birds everywhere. That's all I gotta say. Like, if you're a bird watcher, go to Florida. And next, sea life. We've seen a lot of sea life in and around Florida, fish and sea turtles. Florida is known mostly for their loggerhead sea turtles, not their green sea turtles, which Hawaii is known for. But I have to say, if you want the best sea life, it's gonna be in Hawaii. Other than the Keys, okay? Key Largo, just cut them out, because Key Largo is great. But to find the best sea life, you're gonna have to go farther offshore in Florida. Like I said, unless you're in the Keys, or you're gonna have to go to like an artificial reef or like some kind of like the jetties or something like that. You'll see a lot of sea life. In the open ocean though, it's gonna be a lot harder to find. Versus Hawaii is known for like shore diving and snorkeling because there's a reef right off the islands. But also, I have to give this to Florida. The Florida Keys Reef is actually the 3rd largest coral reef in the world. So if you really want to go to Florida for their snorkeling, go to South Florida, like Jupiter area, Keys. It's going to be probably just like Hawaii, although notice the marine life is very different, and even the coral is very different in these 2 different locations. We can't forget about the Florida manatees. Oh my gosh, the best places to see these rare animals are actually in the Florida springs, such as Crystal River. Manatees are actually very friendly despite their intimidating appearance, so that's something you must see if you can. Hawaii might not be abundant in on-land animals. They do have a lot of rare animals, like birds that you can only find in Hawaii, monk seals that you can only find in Hawaii, but sea life is like, I can't explain it. I just have to put B-roll up here to show you. Sea turtles, you're almost guaranteed to see one if you come to any of the Hawaiian Islands, if you look hard enough. If your trip, you want it based on sea life, you can find a lot of snorkeling, a lot of great scuba diving in Hawaii, which Florida's great for it as well, but I know some of you probably clicked on this video for me to talk about the beaches, and honestly, I really don't even want to compare the 2. They're both really great in their own different ways. Florida's so huge, you're gonna get a different type of beach. And then the Hawaiian Islands, the different sides of the islands have all different beaches. I really love both. One thing I can say though, the Pacific water is much cooler and it's much like a darker blue versus Florida, it's in the Atlantic Ocean and the water is much more green. I mean, give or take. You know what I'm saying. All right, let's talk about things to do. Let's start with Florida since we've been starting with Florida this whole video. Florida's huge. I mean, obviously it's gonna have more things to do. Like some really great things are like Disney World, the Emerald Coast, the Florida Keys, like Tampa Bay area, Miami area. There's like, you could probably find anything for any type of person in Florida. Now Hawaii, I have to say, the most populous island is Oahu. And that's not even the biggest island, it's the 3rd largest island. And the other islands, more say, are kind of like barren. Like there's parts of the other islands that are more populous and with more things to do, but at the majority, Oahu is the island you're gonna find everything. And I was thinking about this, kind of like different types of travelers, like even families. For one thing, I have to say, if I had like a small baby, I would probably not bring them to Hawaii because I'm not gonna get the most out of my money. I would rather bring them to somewhere like Florida where you can find a lot of like kid things to do. Florida is more family friendly, I would have to say. But for the adventure traveler, I would say definitely go to Hawaii. You're gonna find a ton of things to do for that adventure traveler in Hawaii that you probably can't do or get the most out of your money in Florida. So this topic is just really hard to talk about. It's what you're looking for in your vacation, and yeah, you go from there. Okay, so let's talk about cost. It's just known that Hawaii is expensive, and it is, but after my research, I think you'll be surprised on the things that I found. Let's talk about Florida. So, we lived in Florida for a travel nursing assignment in the Panhandle region in Tallahassee, more specifically, way back when, way before COVID, and it was so affordable. We were actually so shocked about how affordable it was. Fast forward like 2 years later, we took another assignment in Panama City Beach, and we were still kind of shocked at how affordable it was. Of course, Panama City Beach is more of a tourist location, so it was more expensive than Tallahassee, but otherwise we were kind of happy with the experience. And of course, we traveled all throughout the state on both locations, and for the most part, we really did think Florida was affordable. Now, fast forward to nowadays, post-COVID, we're in a recession, everything is rising, prices are astronomical. Our last trip to Florida, we were kind of shocked at how expensive it really was. And we started comparing our expenses to Hawaii, which they were actually very, very close. And like I've been saying this whole video, Florida is huge, and the different regions of Florida are gonna be more expensive than others. Hawaii, on the other hand, it was expensive to eat out in those tourist areas and restaurants, but I feel like as a whole, it was much easier to find more affordable dining in Hawaii because a lot of it you can find like food trucks and poke, and it's a lot of like vendors on the street, like local food. So I feel like if you know where to find your food in Hawaii, you can really cut the cost down. So all in all, I'm basically saying don't cut Hawaii out of the question because they're really actually very close in prices food-wise, especially if you're eating out a lot. And that's something that you can look into yourself. So now we're gonna jump in on my laptop. I'm gonna show you and compare some hotels, and literally we can get a grand view of hotels, and I'll do a couple of different regions just so you can see the comparison. All right, guys, so I jumped in here on FunJet Vacations, and this is basically the place where I can find the most hotels, so that's why I chose FunJet. So we're going to go here. We'll start with Florida. We're going to click a package type, so hotel only. Let's start with, let's just say Miami, since Miami is expensive, apparently. 1 room, 2 adults. Let's just say, let's go the middle of June. That's a very popular time, and we'll do 7 days or 7 nights, and let's search. So just FYI, I don't sell a lot of Florida vacations because really travel agents don't get a lot of commission off of domestic locations, but I do sell Universal Studios and Disney World. So if you're looking for those locations, hit me up. If you're looking for a travel agent, I would love to help you out. So narrow this down because this is going to come up with a ton of hotels. Let's narrow it down to 4 and 5-star hotels because that's really what you're looking for if you're planning a vacation. And we're going to sort by preferred. Yeah, let's just do that. Sort by preferred. Okay, so here we go. We see we have the Marriott for $2,800-ish. Cadillac Hotel, $1,600, $1,600, $2,300, $2,000, $1,400. So we're kind of seeing like an average price, okay, like 2,000s, 1,500s. Oh, here we go. Here's some more expensive ones. 3,000. I would say overall the average probably around 2,000 because we're getting some really high ones and some lower ones. So look at this. It's even getting more expensive. So let's just say 2,000 for a week in Florida, Miami area. Okay, so let's just click a different location just to get a good idea. Hotel only. Going to, let's do Orlando. That's another area that's pretty expensive in Florida. We're going to do the same dates just so we can get an idea. I think it was 12th through the 19th, 7 nights. And I was kind of playing around with this earlier, and it's going to give us a lot of Disney hotels and Universal Studios, which kind of like, those are a lot more expensive, I'd have to say. So you're going to see a lot of higher ones, but we're going to try to cut those out. So cut these out. The Dolphin actually is not Disney owned. I know it says Walt Disney World Dolphin because it's on Disney World property, but it's not Disney owned. So actually that hotel is one of the cheaper ones you can find on Disney property, and it's right at Epcot. So yeah, $1,800 for a week. That's actually pretty good. Skip these Universal ones. We got the Hilton, 2,000. Swan's the same way. It's not Disney owned, $1,900. We got some Hyatts. We're kind of seeing more of like 1,500 range right now. We see some 2,000. So I'm thinking that's an expensive one. 2,000. That's a Disney hotel. 3,000, 1,300. So I'd say probably about the same, like 2,000 range. Orlando seems a lot cheaper than Miami. We'll maybe say like 1,800 range because we do have some outliers here. So we did like a South Florida, which was Miami. We did a Mid Florida, which is Orlando. Now we're going to do the Panhandle. Destin. And this will bring up that whole area, Panhandle area. And then Hawaii will do maybe 1 or 2 islands. Okay, narrow it down 4 and 5. Of course, there's not as many. Oh, it almost looks like this area is more expensive. But, so I would say 2,500 is probably the, it doesn't come up with as many hotels. But, so this area of Florida looks like a little bit more expensive. Okay, so let's go over and let's look at Hawaii. Let's start with Oahu, Honolulu. That's going to be your busiest area. It's not the most expensive in Hawaii, I have to say, but we'll start there because it's the most populous and most people go to Oahu. The reason Oahu's not as expensive, like I said, the most people go, there's more options. So I mean, there's a ton of hotels in Honolulu, so it's a matter of like there's more supply. So go down here. All right, so we did 4 and 5-star hotels. Okay, we're seeing here it is more expensive, $3,000, $2,500, $2,300, $3,000, $2,100, $2,200, $3,400. So you are seeing Hawaii is a bit more expensive, but I mean, you're on a dang island, for goodness sakes. Like, so I'm trying to get an average here. We're looking like average, probably like the 3,000s for 7 nights. And this is prime time. If you go during off season, you can find a good deal. So, yeah, I would say 3,000s. And like I said, we're just looking in 4 and 5-star hotels. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that, like 3,000. So it is higher than all of the Florida locations. And we kind of figured that would happen. So let's go to another island. Let's just do Maui. Maui's the next populous island. I think Maui's a bit more expensive than Oahu just because there's not as much supply. Maui has the most things to do outside of Oahu. Okay, so here we go. 6,000 in that range. 7,000, 9,000. I mean, look at these prices. It's pretty crazy. But I've sent clients to Maui, and it was nowhere near these prices. So I know some good resorts. It might not pull up on like 4 and 5-star resorts, but I mean, you're going to get some good quality. So, I mean, yeah, Maui is pricey. Okay, so I think we get the gist that Hawaii overall is more expensive to stay for 7 nights, which is understandable because you're on an island. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to show you, just comparing all of these different locations. Now that we've talked about hotels, let's talk about accessibility. And I feel like this is one area that's just really, one's much more accessible than the other, and it's obvious that that's Florida. So like I said, we grew up in Texas, and the Panhandle of Florida is only an 8-hour drive from our area of Texas. So it's so easy to drive from so many locations all along the southern states, even like mid-states. It's so easy to drive to Florida versus obviously you can't drive to Hawaii, and that comes with a huge cost of flights and a lot of time. Our flights from Texas to Hawaii, most likely, there's some one-way flights out of Austin to Hawaii, but most of them do have a layover, and that's somewhere on the West Coast. So you're flying, 3 hours to the West Coast, and then another like 9 hours overseas to Hawaii. So that takes a huge chunk of time out of your vacation time if you're planning around work. And those flights are so expensive. Versus Florida, you can drive or you can take a flight, and the flight's gonna be much cheaper. Florida's the winner here. I hope this video gives you an insight on both of these locations. I am a Hawaiian island specialist. I'm specialized by the state of Hawaii, and Hawaii is my favorite location to plan. So hit me up if you're looking for Hawaii. And like I said earlier, I do sell the theme park, so I'll put my contact information right here so you can find more information on how to contact me.